It's 420.
Hey look, it's a weeb.
You finally woke up, huh?
Thank God I don't have to watch trashy anime. We're saved, guys!
Wait, what are you all talking about?
Hello, it's me, Mono Inu.
This again?
Now that we're all gathered together, let's start the trial. Welcome to the Mono Inu Theater. Mauricio, take it away.
Right. This trial is brought to you by the Ridge Wallet. Father's Day is coming up, so why don't you gift them something absolutely epic? What says I love you more than a sexy carbon fiber wallet, huh? Or buy it for yourself. It's light, sleek, and industrial and doesn't make an awkward bulge in your pants. Like, come on, you buy new phones, but you have the same old trashy wallet? Change it up, baby. It holds up to 12 cards, has plenty of room for cash, and is made with RFID blocking technology, so say goodbye to digital pickpocketers. Don't believe me? Read their 30,000 5-star reviews. Yeah, all you have to do to get a wallet is go to ridge.com/ChadNation and use code ChadNation to get a 10% off your offer with free worldwide shipping and returns. Wallets aren't the only thing they sell, too. The Ridge has an assortment of backpacks, phone cases, and more. So again, go to rich.com/ChadNation and use code ChadNation to get 10% off your order. Link in the description.
Can you explain the trial to this incel again?
Incel?
The 5 of you will debate whether or not Danganronpa is a good series or not. If you all vote in agreement that Danganronpa is a great series, you will all survive and I will be punished. But if even one of you disagrees and thinks Danganronpa isn't a good series, then all of you will be punished and I will remain unharmed.
Wait, but can't we all just lie and say the Danganronpa series is good and beat the game?
Do you know who you're talking to?
Mauricio, you don't understand. I would be willing to die for my opinions.
Not to be rude, but if we don't stick to our beliefs, then we are truly lost.
Even though I love pretty much everything, I can't lie and say that I love absolutely everything. I don't even know what this is.
You've got to be kidding me.
But who's gonna convince us? Nobody here's played the games or watched the anime.
Except Mauricio here.
I guess it's up to me then. I was first introduced to Danganronpa during my first year as a weeb. See, I started to see a lot of posts on Twitter about the game Danganronpa 2, and was intrigued, but it never truly caught my eye. That is until a Steam summer sale happened. Thanks, Steam. All 3 games were now incredibly cheap, and being the impulsive person I am, I decided to buy the 3 games: Trigger Happy Havoc, Goodbye Despair, and Killing Harmony. This was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Holy shit, I've always wanted to play a visual novel, and this is probably the best one I could start with. A genuine marvel of a game. Imagine you're stuck in a school with people you don't know that are around your age, and you have to stay there for the rest of your life. Sounds insane, right? It gets even worse. The only way for you to escape this horror is to commit a horror yourself. You have to kill someone and get away with it.
希望同士が殺し合う絶望的なシチュエーションなんてドキドキする。はあ
That's the insane premise of Trigger Happy Havoc, which I will now just be calling Danganronpa. Students are locked inside a school and forced to kill each other. It's rare to play a game where you genuinely have no idea who will die next at times, and if you do have an idea who will die, it's still hard to tell who's the killer. The claustrophobic atmosphere of the game is also nearly unbearable. The school the game is set in is closed off from the outside world. No communication. There's eerie lights everywhere, and it all oozes this this unbridled sense of despair. As you get deeper into the story, there are more twists and turns, and as the plot unravels, your jaw drops because of how incredibly detailed and surprising this game's story is. The protagonist, Makoto Naegi, is essentially a nobody with the power of just being lucky. But it's not like it works really well either way, so you're kind of just you. Being a visual novel, essentially like playing a book, you get to read the internal monologue of the protagonist. When he loses, the feeling of powerlessness is all on you. When he makes a decision, it's you making a decision, because you are in complete control of the character, or at least as much in control as you can be, because it's a game, and this game's story is rather linear. While linear though, the game does its best to make you feel like you have some sort of effect on the world around you. And this is most prevalent in the absolute highlight of the game, the class trials. They're present in all of the games, and it's when the characters are all forced to face each other and debate who they believe to be the killer. To make things a little clearer, the class trials only take place when a student has murdered another student, and the class trial's outcome is based on the clues you uncover when someone dies. Now again, this is linear, but the game makes it feel like you're genuinely discovering all these clues for yourself by allowing you to uncover these clues at any order you'd like most of the time. There's so many things you have to do in a class trial, and the camera spins around from character to character, adding to the intensity of the moment. You also have to argue with the people you consider friends, and the people that consider you an enemy, and it adds to the ever-present anxiety that anyone could die. Heck, someone could kill you. You don't know. The story is also defined by characters like Kyoko Kirigiri and Byaku Yatogami, characters who push you to do certain things, press you to look for clues, and aid you in discovering the truth. Little moments like these not only add to the dynamic you have between characters like these two, but they also make you feel involved with these characters. Even if some are tropey, the game manages to turn that on its head and give the characters backstory, which explains why they are like they are, or hides a different side to them. They all have their strange quirks for better or worse, and the more you play the game, the more time you spend with them, and the worse it is if someone kills them. The game's brutality is embodied by the perpetrator and mastermind of the entire ordeal, Monokuma, a character with a name so eerie, it feels like if you say his name 3 times, he'll appear in your house. His goal is to drive everyone into despair, a despair so strong that the main characters would have to give up and surrender the rest of their lives to living at this school. And that's where the main theme of the game comes in. The students of the school, called Hope's Peak High, have their hope taken away. And the game evolves into this battle of hope versus despair, both powerful feelings a human can have, but which is the most powerful? Makoto Naegi, you, is powerless, and you feel that at first, but as the game continues, you realize that you're smarter and more powerful than you first thought, and that you don't have to face this threat alone. The students that are trapped with you are your strength as well. The main characters are confronted against an unspeakable truth, but they have to face it with their heads held high, because that's what it takes to not only beat this killing game, but break the shackles of despair that have chained them down to the school and to their pasts for so long. The game takes our protagonists to their lowest points, all of them to their lowest points, so that they can rise back up for a climactic showdown. And when I say lowest points, I mean that literally. I don't think there's a game that surprised me this much before. You witness tragedy after tragedy, and yet the story always hints at even more tragedy that you're unaware of, and the discovery of what's being hidden from you is absolutely shocking and game-changing. The game makes you feel like you're truly living this horror. The music is eerie, depressing, but gets absolutely hype when necessary. The themes are excellent, and you play as a character that instills hope onto others, urging them to look forward toward a brighter future. And I think that's great. All of that, and Trigger Happy Havoc, Danganronpa.
Like a chemical reaction, you've changed me.
I really enjoyed Kiki's Delivery Service, and I've really wanted to get into some more mature anime and visual novels. I might have to get into this series now.
You know, I love everything, but this is a series, not just one game, so how do you know we're gonna love everything after the first one just as much?
If I'm gonna convince them, I'll have to do it. Shockingly, Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair is better than the original. Not by much in my opinion, but still better. In the sequel, the world is bigger. There's a new cast with more characters, and you now play as Hajime Hinata, and class trials are a lot slicker, there's a lot more to do in trials, and there's an additional new game that allows you to skate, which is so weird, but so engaging. The story, I don't think, is as insane as the first, but there are a lot more twists, which are then aided by callbacks to the previous game, further boosting the sequel's ability to deliver chill-inducing moments. Last but not least, the game is a lot less scary than the first, and I believe it's because the creators realized that they can't just copy the first game completely. Getting stuck in a place and being afraid can get old, and it becomes less scary if done again. For example, look at the terrible Paranormal Activity movies. So, this game decides to somewhat reinvent itself and be a bit more fun, and uses these added positive moments to make the antithesis more impactful.
せっかくいい考えだと思ったのによ。
個性もなくてモテない上にバカなんて残念。生きてる価値ないよね。
俺は褒められて伸びるタイプだからな。
ぷぷ、なんだかそれっぽくなってきましたね。
Like the saying, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. The happier you feel, the worse it will feel when tragedy strikes. The game at times supplants fear with a subversion, and sometimes, because of these subversions, you get scared. Things you see may not really be true, characters that seem nice may actually be insane, and so on. And that's another thing about Danganronpa 2 that's slightly improved over the first. The characters do feel a little more developed and unique. It feels like you have a genuine circle of friends, and that actually instills some hope in you, which again, is later on ripped away from you. And, this isn't enough. I need to be more specific. I'm gonna have to give out spoilers now. Alright. In the first game, Makoto Naegi starts the game believing to be a first year at Hope's Peak High, about to attend his first day. But the truth is that he's had his memory erased, and he's technically already a second year. The mastermind behind Monokuma and the killings is a student from his class, Junko Enoshima. She's directly caused this horrible event called the worst, most despair-inducing incident in the history of mankind, the tragedy, which changed the world and led it to chaos. Makoto at the time being a first year has seniors above his grade. These second years who eventually become third years all went insane and became remnants of despair, causing havoc wherever they desired. We never actually see this happen in the game, but we're told that it's true.
人類史上最大最悪の絶望的事件を引き起こし、世界を混乱に陥れた張本人たちだ。
The biggest bombshell is that the protagonist of the second game, Hajime, and the rest of the characters that have been killing each other are all actually these said remnants of despair.
希望が峰学園の生き残りであると同時に、俺たちが超高校級の絶望?
This truth breaks the mind of Hajime Hinata. The only reason they appear sane is because they've all been in a simulation, a game, this entire time carried out by the protagonist of the first game, Makoto Naegi, working now with an organization called the Future Foundation in an effort to rehabilitate them. To do this, they had to erase their memories from when they were remnants of despair. So when you start the game, you think you're just a regular student and not a crazy psycho killer that ends up destroying the world. Sadly, the remnants of despair themselves caused the situation they're in by pretty much installing Junko into the game, and that's why all the killings in the second game ensue. So, here comes the reason as to why I spoiled the game here. The entire crux of the game lies in this very moment. To wake up is to return to being a remnant of despair. The survivors of the second killing game might just revert back to being psychos, forgetting about everything that has transpired in the game. And Hajime, similar to the first game, is given a choice: stay in the game forever and have a false hope, or leave the simulation and live in true despair.
ダメだ。ダメって何が？だから無理なんだって。俺なんかには無理なんだよ。未来なんて選べないんだよ。
But what separates Danganronpa 2 from the first game to me is how it further elaborates the message of the first game. Danganronpa 2 made me realize that when the characters of the first game chose hope, the hope they chose wasn't one of the two choices laid out for them. The hope they were given was to stay in blissful ignorance, and that would just leave them blinded to the reality of things. They actually chose a third option. Hope can't be the only emotion you take in, you have to take in despair as well to truly understand what hope is. In Danganronpa 2, this third option, this true hope, is way more on the nose, and because of this, this sentiment becomes much more visceral and intense, thus making the emotional climax that much more cathartic. Hajime Hinata is forced to accept that he will no longer be happy or be able to live a normal life, that he has to sacrifice who he is for the greater good, and has to let go of his future. But the game tells you, that you can always move forward towards a future you create for yourself. A future not dictated by anyone else, a future that's yours and yours alone. A future that's not hope, not despair, it's the combination of two, and only that brings true hope. And in Danganronpa 2, Hajime accepts his horrible side and creates a new version of himself, a visual representation of taking both hope and despair and carrying that forward. This more in-depth message reformatted the first game for me. This is probably just me being ignorant and not really paying attention, but Danganronpa 2 really did make me appreciate the first game that much more.
みんなのこと忘れないよ。だってずっと仲間だもん。
And the thing about Peter is that he can't be defined by Iron Man. That's just not the Peter Parker we know and love.
Alex, you're talking about Spider-Man again.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, I buy it. Seems like I'd love this series.
But the real question is, what about the anime?
It's a good anime, but is it a good Danganronpa anime?
After the sequel game, you get the standalone game Ultra Despair Girls, which is great and all, and ties directly to the end of the Hope's Peak Academy saga, and the end of the saga is showcased in the anime series Danganronpa 3, The End of Hope's Peak High School. Alright, I'll be honest, this anime is a genuine highlight for me. Not only does it showcase the tragedy that's always been talked about throughout the entire series, but it shows in detail how Hope's Peak High falls, how the second years become the remnants of despair, and it shows how Makoto Nagi truly is the ultimate hope, the one that has the power to convince others of the hope they hold inside themselves. And of course, who can forget the massacre episode? Yeah, that's very brutal and still stuck in my head. The series takes everything that works for the games plot-wise and explores it to the max, having two arcs that are meant to be watched concurrently, the future side being set in the present with Makoto Nagi, and the despair side being set in the past with Hajime Hinata. We jump back and forth between the arcs, and things set up in one arc help elaborate the events of the other. Seeing the characters we've come to love from the first Danganronpa game take part in another killing game is absolutely amazing and horrifying. Please, please, please don't die, Asahina, I love you too much. A major advantage the series has to the games is direction. The camera tells the story, we can get more moments of the characters just interacting, as we aren't tied to one character's point of view, and the killing game in the series is incredibly refreshing. It's a genuine killing game, but it's a massive departure from the games the series has brought us so far. In this version, all the characters have a bangle on their wrist, which has a timer. When the timer reaches 0, they will all fall asleep, and a traitor among them will kill one of them while they're sleeping. The goal simply is to find out who the traitor is. They also all have a forbidden action. If this forbidden action is executed somehow, a poison will be injected into their wrist and kill them.
とにかく距離を取らないと。
そうじゃなくて、僕走れないんだ。僕の NG 行動。
This leads to situations that are all defined by the limitations these characters have, ones that they can't reveal to others in fear of being double-crossed, and there's also the ticking clock, or the timer, that I love in films and shows, where the characters have only so much time to do things. The reveals this show has are on par, if not even more insane than some of the reveals from the games, and the decision to have to watch the arcs concurrently adds to the drama, making you want to find out what happens next even more. Danganronpa 3 expands on the relationship between hope and despair. That's the message of the entire Danganronpa series in all honesty, but this show specifically has a much more specific theme it wants to tackle. In the series, Makoto Nagi is brought to trial for harboring the remnants of despair. In the second game, when Makoto put the remnants of despair in a simulation, this was actually against the Future Foundation's orders. And because of this, everyone in the Future Foundation believes Makoto himself to be a despair due to these actions. Mostly Kyosuke Munakata, pretty much the one in command of the Future Foundation. This character is very important to the anime here because he challenges Makoto's ideals directly. The dynamic between these two characters helps the viewer better understand the amazing theme of the series, and that is that lack of belief is what leads to downfall. Munakata believes that true hope comes from the elimination of despair. Hope to him is something that can only be consumed by despair. So to him, killing everyone and tearing down everything in the name of hope to destroy despair is just.
味方を殺して何が希望じゃ。た一人でも残せば、こうして奴らは何度でも蘇る。だから絶望は確実に仕留めなければならない。
Munakata believes Makoto's hopefulness isn't actually substantial. They're just empty words, platitudes that ring hollow, which may inspire but never change. But Makoto has faith in people, and that's the difference between the two of them.
絶望しそうな現実の中に未来を見て、それを信じて言葉にする。そうやって希望は広がるんだ。
And this trust in, well, trust is important. The lack of trust is what causes the deaths of so many of the future Foundation. For example, the lack of trust between Seiko, Ruruka, and Sanosuke is what leads to the three of them dying. They lost trust in each other since high school and have held the grudge years later. Ruruka even kills the person she loves, Sanosuke, because she's afraid of being betrayed.
裏切られたくないの。裏切られる前にルルカが裏切るの。
In the despair side, we have Hajime and Chiaki, and Hajime believes himself to be nothing, talentless, a reserve student who can't accomplish a fraction of what a prodigious student can, and believing himself unable to stand next to Chiaki as an equal, he decides to undergo a procedure to become an ultimate, to become talented.
新作出てたし一緒にやろう。
悪い。ちょっと用事があってさ。
そっか。
And it's his lack of trust in himself that pushes the story forward and ultimately leads to Chiaki Nanami's death.
ひなたくんとゲームしたかったよ。
A lot of the characters in this series experience trauma and pain, but Makoto is the ultimate hope, and he places his hopes on others in hopes of having others do the same for each other. In the future side, he trusts in everyone so much so that he reveals his forbidden action to everyone in order to get them to trust him.
またあれをやらされるんだね。
あの時とは違うよ。僕がいるから。
That's what makes the protagonist of the series and the series' message so special. What is hope, if not trust?
あの時は僕らはお互いを知らなかった。でも今は違う。あれを乗り越えた僕らはお互いに信じられる。
Makoto Nagi's trust in his seniors who went insane leads to the salvation of the entire world in the end. The goal of the third Killing Game was to bring despair to Ryota Mitarai, pushing him to transmit a video that's full of hope to the world, ultimately brainwashing everyone with hope and eliminating despair. And here's where the message from Danganronpa 2 comes into play again, now reinforced by the events of the anime Danganronpa 3. Eliminating despair means eliminating hope. Because if you eliminate what makes you angry, what makes you sad, then there's no reason for you to love or feel inspired. The world would just become an emotionless void without fulfillment. That's the difference between hope and true hope. In the future side of the anime, Kyoko Kirigiri dies. Well, not really, but everyone believes this, so this occurs to present to the audience the reasoning behind Makoto's ideals. He loves Kyoko, and this mirrors Munakata's love for his deceased lover, Chisa Yukizome, who succumbed to despair. Unlike Munakata, who is so blindly fixated on the idea of eliminating all despair, no matter who gets eliminated, Makoto understands the importance of it, and recognizes that if he was in Munakata's position and Kyoko succumbed to despair, he wouldn't make an effort to eliminate her from his mind, he would instead cherish the moments he had with her when she wasn't despair. And in taking in that pain, that despair of losing her, he understands just how much she means to him. And I really f***ing love that.
どんなことになったって、キリギリさんに会えてよかったって思うから。
That's the theme of not just the anime, but the entire series. You have to trust others and let others trust you in order to create a future that's worth living in. You have to be willing to forgive and you have to be willing to atone. There is so much I love about this series, from Makoto's undying love for Hope, which rivals Asahina's love for donuts, to how I hated Nagito at the beginning and I ended up loving the character. It was awesome to see Hajime and Chiaki both refuting Junko when Chiaki's already dead, so it's like she's always with him, which comes back in the anime. I find it so dope how in Danganronpa 2, Makoto, Kyoko, and Byakuya all challenge arguments with pathos, ethos, and logos respectively. I love how the anime pays tribute to everything, even Ultra Despair Girls, making every Danganronpa property feel connected. I just love Danganronpa, and I hope you do too.
Hard as we try, none of us can see the future. The horizon we walk toward is always obscured. The future's always hazy. Hope and despair mingle. We can't always tell which is which. Still though, if all you do is sit and wait, nothing happens. Just walk with your memories. Look up at the sky and say to yourself, there's always hope for tomorrow.
Huh. That actually seems pretty tight.
I totally get your points now. I agree.
Great, now let's all vote. Let's all take this dog down.
What? But all of you aren't supposed to agree. This isn't possible.
Alright, Mono Inu, you've toyed with us long enough. Time to get your ass beaten.
No, not my ass!
How's it going, everyone? Thanks so much for watching the video. Thank you to Alex, Bailey, Houston, John, and Johnny for taking part in this video, and thanks to all the cover artists for the music. Their links are in the description. I'm also making an anime-influenced animated series called Interstellar Ranger Commence. If you're interested, go to the link in the description below. Thanks so much to my patrons for bearing with me in my slow-ass upload schedule, and make sure to subscribe and become a Chad. Becoming a Chad means you will be granted ultimate luck. That's right, I'm totally not lying. So thank you so much for coming to the table, and I'll see you all next time. 偽り偽戦者ぶて